the next half hour, looking back at the last 7 days in Daf Yomi, somewhere deep in the middle of Bava Batra. And we are joined this morning, for me, might not be morning for you, but morning for me on the East Coast of the United States, by Rabbi Abigail Halpern. So Rabbi Halpern, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm also going to put my source sheet in the chat for you if you prefer that. So give me 1 second to just... Okay. Always got to double check the sharing settings. I'll send you all a Google Doc that nobody can see. All right. Share. So today, can I just get some nods that the screen share is working? Fabulous, thank you. So we're going to talk about a piece of Talmud that is very well known in certain parts of the Talmud study world and not well known at all in other parts. So we're going to look at a piece we're going to do a little bit of an in-depth dive into a piece from what would have been Monday if you are following along in the Daf Yomi cycle or reading the emails. And if you are not, it's just a piece of Talmud. So this is in some ways a very classic piece of property dispute that we're going to get in Bava Batra, which is all about property disputes. So I don't know if any of you are boat owners. I certainly am not. I get very seasick, so I try to avoid boats. But luckily for this piece of Talmud, we do not have to actually be on a boat or understand anything about boats, which is a relief to me. So we're going to look at this piece of Talmud, and we're going to then look at two medieval commentators who have different takes on it. So there was a certain boat that two people were quarreling about with regard to its ownership. And just as a note, the bold is a direct translation, and the not bold is the interpolation to make the very sparse Aramaic make more sense by the translators. It is not an indicator of what is important. So there's a boat that two people were quarreling about with regard to its ownership. This one said, it is mine, and that one also said, it is mine. Okay, two people think they own this boat, but only one person actually owns the boat. One of them came to the court. So they go to the rabbinic court for help, and they say, seize it until I am able to bring witnesses that it is mine. So person A, who says this is my boat, wants the rabbinic court to hold on to the boat to kind of protect it from the other person until this person says, I know this is my boat. I can prove it. I just need a little bit of time to gather the evidence, in this case, witnesses. And I want you, the rabbis, to hold on to the boat until we can kind of get it all worked out. And then so we have this question. In such a case, do we seize it or do we not seize it? And the we, of course, is the Talmud, is the rabbis speaking. So the rabbis are saying, someone's come to us and said, hold on to my boat until I can prove that it's my boat. Hold on to this boat. So then there's a dispute. Do the rabbis actually hold on to the boat, or do they refuse to get involved? So Rav Huna says we seize it, and Rav Yehuda says we do not seize it, as there's no cause for the court to intervene. Okay, so that's two opinions on whether or not the rabbis get entangled in this dispute over boat ownership. Okay, in this specific case, the court seized the boat. They do it. So they're going like the opinion of Rav Huna, who says the court ought to seize the boat until things can be worked out. And the person who requested of the court to seize it went to seek witnesses. He said, I want you to hold on to this boat until I can prove that it's mine by finding witnesses that it's mine. Like, this is my friend Bob, and Bob knows that I bought this boat 10 years ago because he went to the boat dealership with me, and I'll get Bob to come to court and say that. But he didn't find witnesses, for Bob's out of town. And then he says to the court, so release the boat. The person who initially asked the court to hold on to the boat says, never mind, I take it all back. Give me back, just let the boat go, and whoever is stronger prevails. So we'll just whoever is stronger prevails. I'm actually not going to give more explanation or translation, because what this phrase means is what I want us to dive into. So I'm going to jump over this little interpretive bit. So in such a case, Do we release it? Do the rabbis give the boat back to sort of just let it go, take it out of court custody? Or do they not release it? Rav Yehuda says that we do not release it. And you'll note, Rav Yehuda said we don't seize it. Rav Yehuda said the court shouldn't have taken it. But once the court's taken it, Rav Yehuda says don't let it go until there's proof. And Rav Papa said we release it. We do just let it go. Rav Papa says we release it, we let it go. The Gemara concludes, and the halacha, the ruling, is that we do not seize property in a case where ownership is uncertain. But where it was seized, we don't release it. So this is the opinion of Rav Yehuda all the way through. That if ownership of an object is disputed, the court doesn't get involved. The court doesn't like take it and hold on to it until there's evidence. But if the court did take it, they don't just let it go. Then we do have to wait for evidence. What makes this piece of Talmud so interesting to medieval commentators and a lot of folks who do traditional yeshiva study is whoever is stronger prevails. What does that mean? And I want to collect things in the chat. I see Aaron Boxer says, I doubt the rabbis meant physical violence. Great, we already have one opinion. What do you think whoever is stronger prevails means? And feel free to also unmute. I'll need you to press the raise hand function because otherwise I won't see that you want to speak. But, okay, so we have one vote for no physical violence. We have one vote for stronger case for ownership. Solomon's dilemma. Some people with better connections or more wealth maybe being able to better game the system. Hopefully not status in society. Yeah, Leah or Leia, forgive me, I don't know. Is this a battle of wills or of strength? That is the question, right? Is it persistence or is it stronger argument? Okay, this is amazing. We have all of the options on the table. Is there anyone here who thinks this means physical strength? Are like anyone who's like, absolutely, I think it means that they're gonna basically like do a tug of war or an arm wrestle? Is there anyone who's like, I think that's the best reading? And feel free to unmute. It would be funny to have a wrestling match over the boat. Maybe the rabbis are just in it for the comedy. Okay, yeah. Janine, once the court has gotten involved, they should see the case through. Opinion, reality TV. It's we can see the high drama here, right? Leah or Leia? And I'm asking you to unmute. There we go. Oh, is it working? Forgive me, I'm trying to unmute you and it's not letting me. Rachel, can you help me unmute?
I clicked too. Leia, you should be able to.
Oh, okay. You know, we have to put this into context. This was at the time when the Romans were still having gladiatorial battles, and perhaps someone was thinking, oh, maybe it's that. I still vote for it's a battle of wills, but I think we should throw that on the table, look at when this was written, and what was going on then around them. Was this perhaps a dig at the Roman idea of gladiator trials?
That's so interesting, right? The Talmud is this ancient document. It's assembled in ancient Roman and Babylonian contexts, excuse me. I mean, also conquests. But at the time, there was a lot of use of physical strength to resolve conflict. And I mean, like, right now, the Olympics are happening. The Olympics are a contest that's all about having like healthy, safe physical competition instead of more violent physical competition. Okay, Lynn says, absolutely, the rabbis would not have condoned using a physical fight or ordeal. Leia is like, I could see it. Okay. And something I want to pull out also is that there's actually, we've been talking about, is it physical or is it not physical? There's actually another division here that we could be analyzing this through, which is, we release the boat and whoever is stronger prevails, is that legal or extra legal? In other words, is whoever is stronger prevails a principle for the rabbis to use in determining who gets the boat within their court system? Or is it extra legal? Aaron Boxer says it is extra legal. Says, no, we just let it go and they'll sort it out. And then we can be disputing, is the sorting out physical or not physical? But is the rabbi saying, just take it, it's out of our hands? Or is it a principle internal to the system? Saul says, why a boat? I don't know. There's a lot of scholars who discuss whether or not the kind of case law in the Talmud is real, as in, is this a record of something that actually happened? Or did the rabbis innovate and imagine cases to test out different legal principles? So either some people actually had a boat, or someone working on the Talmud thought it would be fun to give the example of a boat. They could sell the boat and divide the proceeds. And that's something that gets suggested later on, Lynn. Yes. We don't even need the Talmud. You can all just generate the Talmud in the chat. Okay. I love this. Okay. So people have strong opinions. Amazing. You know who else had strong opinions? Many medieval commentators. We're in great company. Okay. So we're going to look at two comments. And what I think is really interesting here, in no small part, is that I was noticing, especially in the chat, that there's the thing that gets us, at least for me, and I was noticing this as well in the chat, the difference between, excuse me, I got distracted by the interesting things in the chat. The difference between physical conflict and working it out by sort of proofs or argument or verbal things feels like the big distinction for us, right? Are they having some kind of fist fight, arm wrestling? I grab one end, you grab the other end, and we pull, which is probably not good for the boat. I saw someone reference Solomon in there. That's giving us that kind of evoking that. But for medieval commentators, they are a little more interested in, is this legal or extra legal? Okay, so we're going to look at the Roche. The Roche was originally from Germany, but then he moved to Spain. He lived in the 13th century. He says, the principle of whoever is stronger prevails is a law. This is part of how the rabbis are making this distinction. He's saying it's a law. And I want you to note that whenever a medieval commentator comes in and says this is a law, there's an invisible disputant, right? He's saying, you might think it's not a law. You might think this is extra legal. This is the rabbi saying, hands off, take it. He's saying, no, that anyone who is stronger on this first time in court, the boat is hers. Anyone who sort of makes the strongest case in this initial court battle, the boat is hers. Since it is not reasonable for the sages that they should spend all their days in conflict and argument. As today, one person's argument is stronger, and oh, excuse me, there's a typo, and tomorrow the others. In other words, they could go back and forth with arguments all for years if they wanted. They could have this protracted legal battle, and the principle of whoever is stronger prevails, what that means for us is that you do a one-time court situation and then you close the book on it. Rather, the sages ruled that whoever is stronger this time prevails, and we rely on this for anyone who is in the right is likely to bring more proofs. So whoever is right is actually probably going to make, whoever actually owns the boat is going to make a better legal argument, which is not, we know is not necessarily true. Someone was referencing, social status in the chat. Today, right, we know that whoever can hire a better lawyer doesn't mean that you're more likely to be right. But when we're talking about representing yourself, the Roche is saying that there's some sort of principle of, we do a one-time court case, and then we're done. We're not like, wait, I had another idea. Hang on, I can come back tomorrow and with better proofs. Close the book. That whoever is stronger prevails. We are totally in court land. We are completely in the realm of the rabbis have seized the boat. And now returning the boat, it's all about what works within the courts. Okay. So Janine, these courts normally do accept the notion of appeals, right? You're asking these courts don't accept the notion of appeals? What the Roche is saying is that even though normally rabbinic courts would accept the notion of appeals, the fact that in this case, the rabbis bring this principle of whoever is stronger prevails is that for these kinds of property disputes, there's no appeals. That's exactly correct to bring up appeals. It's saying we could have endless appeals, and in these kinds of cases, we don't have appeals. Okay, the Rashbam, who's a French commentator, if you have heard of the famous commentator Rashi, that's his grandson is the Rashbam. Whoever is stronger. So Rashbam says whoever is stronger in whether in legal proofs, okay, so maybe it's court, or physical strength. As Rav Nachman rules later on in a piece of Talmud I didn't bring you, whoever is stronger prevails. Rashbam thinks maybe they're arm wrestling. Arm wrestling is a little bit flip. I think probably it's not about literal arm wrestling, but it does seem like there's some sort of literal physical struggle in the words of the Rashbam. Okay. So let's back up. Whoever is stronger prevails. What do you all think? Do you think, couldn't the one who purchased the boat go to the salesperson or record who shows who bought the boat, Judith? In that case, it would be open and shut. We're talking about where somebody like the dealership closed and they lost their receipt and they're trying to gather other things. Right? The whole case is when they can't have good enough proofs to be definitive. And instead they're making arguments of like, if it was my boat, if it wasn't my boat, why would I be claiming this boat? And like those kinds of things, instead of bringing witnesses, which witnesses could also be a document with signed by witnesses. Okay. I want us to return to this notion of physical force. What? Well, the rabbis have a whole elaborate court system. We are in Bava Batra. We are in the third of 3 tractates that are all about the rabbinic legal system for interpersonal and property disputes. And suddenly we have this either hands off, have a fight about it. What do you make of that? And I would love for you to unmute and tell me.
Folks don't have the power to unmute themselves, but if you raise your hand,
Raise your hand.
I can click a button and give you that power.
Raise your hand and tell me, excuse me. Okay, Lynn, maybe the rabbis are saying, don't bother us with that sort of thing. Right, and that's sort of what the Rosh is saying, is it could be endless, right? The rabbis could spend all their time on these low stakes property disputes. I'm thinking about, right, my parents live in the suburbs and there's endless fights in the next door and community Facebook group about all these low stakes, your cat is in my garden. Did anybody take out the trash all the time? Imagine if the legal system was completely consumed by those things. Okay, Aaron, please.
Yeah, I think it's, I would see it as unofficial trial by jury. Go to the public, discuss it among everybody and let public opinion prevail.
Ooh, so there's the public. Okay, where are you getting the public opinion from? Tell me more. Oh no, you're muted again. Help.
I'm getting it right out of my head. I'm just thinking it.
Amazing. Right, which gets at what is strength. And all of these medieval commentators, both of the medieval commentators I brought you are talking about what they're disputing what is strength really. And it could be legal proofs. It could be proofs, it could be arguments, and proofs and arguments are different, right? Proof is, I found the receipt in my files, and arguments are something like, I can't think of a good example, but it's a logical argument rather than a material piece of proof. And then there's the arm wrestle option. Wouldn't there be an equivalent to being observed working the land for 3 years? Right, that would be, let me collect witnesses. And then if you can't find witnesses, then we go on to this. This is, right, so many folks in the chat who have been learning Bava Batra, you're saying, we know there are so many mechanisms to prove ownership. That's what we've been talking about for days and weeks, is how do you prove ownership of land, of property, etc. And this is a case where it's where none of those things can be found. There's no, you can't, your neighbor's out of town and can't say, I've seen him wash the boat in his driveway every day for 3 years. You lost the receipt. Nothing. We're out of tools. We could only be doing art. Couldn't repair records be with it? Right. Sharna, why is this case thrown out of court while others are okay in court? Right. It seems like, what do we do when all of the mechanisms for figuring these things out aren't working anymore? And the kind of solutions that were given, the Rosh and Rashbam are disputing what's going on when the rabbis are kind of out of tools. And the Rosh is refusing to accept that the rabbis are actually out of tools. The Rosh says the rabbis actually have tools. This principle of whoever is stronger prevails is internal to the legal system. This is one of the tools that the rabbis have for solving this problem. When there's no concrete seal the deal proof, you just have your one case, no more back and forth of arguments. Whereas the Rashbam kind of is whoever can overpower in a kind of extra legal sense. MJ, I see a couple of people, Naomi and MJ, both asking, maybe God will sort it out. That's a really interesting question, right? Is there a theology here? And again, we kind of return to this sense of like almost like Solomonic, prophetic, like whoever gets it deserves it, which is pretty dangerous, right? Whoever ends up with the thing all should have had it all along. That's a pretty scary way to think about the world. And if you have a really robust theology where God is acting in the world, maybe it's like, we're done, say the rabbis, give it to God. Or maybe it's, we're done, you sort it out. We're not in this problem anymore. You and your neighbor, you're having your cat jumped over the fence. That's not for the courts. Okay.
Janine says just sell the boat and split it, which is a solution we've seen to many other similar problems where we don't know. I think that's an interesting point. You know, we've seen so many other times, you know, sell it and split it. Right?
Yeah.
Why don't they go to that here?
I think that's a really important question about this piece. That part of why this piece gets studied so much in traditional yeshiva context is it's so weird. Like, all of you brilliant scholars keep thinking of solutions, right? Sell the boat and split it. That's a great option when you're in doubt. Why would they have this example here? I think that there is something interesting about the fact that the rabbis in the middle of Bava Batra, right? We're all the way deep in Bava Batra. We have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of how do the rabbis resolve interpersonal and property disputes. And we have this little taste of like, maybe the rabbis can't do everything. And I think it can be really interesting to read this as there's, of course, so many dangers of this, right? Paul is saying it's promoting a society where a zealous bully can go around claiming boats, right? We wouldn't want to live in that world. And at the same time, there's something that's so interesting and even a little bit appealing to me about the idea that sometimes the rabbis get to a point where they say, we've done all we can, we're stepping back, figure it out between you two. And thinking about the rabbis actually having this sense of, we have our limits too. This is this little flash in the middle of these literal so many tractates of the rabbis going back and forth and trying to imagine, right, every possible conflict, every possible scenario to anticipate what the problems might be and how to solve them. And yet here we have this we don't quite know. We're out of resources. And there's something tremendously appealing to me about that kind of flash of vulnerability, if we don't quite know what to do. And the Rosh is scared of that. The Rosh says, no, this isn't a case of the rabbis saying, hands off, we don't know what to do. This is actually internal to the court system. Stop worrying. This is just a principle for resolving this internally. But the Rashbam says, no, actually, this could really be a moment of truly the rabbis saying, you figure it out. You figure it out. However you want to figure it out. Have a fist fight. Give each other proofs. Done. And that's something that I want to carry with me through the rest of learning Bava Batra, is it is such a detailed, stylized, careful look at so many potential cases, right? How many of us walk through the world imagining what could go wrong next and how we're going to navigate it? And this is this, I think, flash of the rabbi saying, we can do our best to live in a world where we're anticipating all the problems and trying to solve them in advance and head off difficulty. But actually, sometimes we can't. Sometimes we all have limits. And I'm thinking about the rabbis as aware of their own limits as something I want to carry through more learning in especially Bava Batra and all of the rest of Niziki and all of the rest of this order of Talmud, which is all about damages and interpersonal cases and courts. We're going to get in several months to conversations about corporal punishment and thinking about where are the moments where the rabbis acknowledge their own fallibility, even as they're trying to build this legal system that can handle everything. Some things you just can't. And I really like that. So I'm really appreciating all of the wisdom in the chat as well. I'm going to close this here. Thank you for learning with me.
Thank you, Rabbi Halper, and thank you to all of you for these for the comments and questions and thoughts. Always a pleasure to learn with all of you, and we will see you in this space in exactly 1 week. Happy learning, everyone, and Shabbat Shalom.